Reincarnation, the timeless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that has fascinated humanity for millennia. From ancient philosophies to modern beliefs, this profound concept touches the very essence of our existence and the mysteries of soul. Discover stories of past life, karmic bonds, and the transformative power of rebirth. From the ancient Vedas to modern spiritual movements, we will trace the journey of the soul across lifetimes. And today we are going to talk about the story of Shiva-Sumitra from 1980s in India. And before we start the video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to never miss an update from Afterlife Tales. Sumitra Singh of Etawah district in India appeared to die and then revived, having apparently lost all awareness of her former personality, but rather showing the knowledge, behaviors, and personality traits of a quite different woman named Shiva Tripathi, who had lived in the same district but had died suddenly by being crushed by a railway train 2 months earlier. On visiting Shiva's family, Sumitra made accurate recognitions of family members, relating to each person in appropriate customary manner. The Tripathi family accepted Sumitra as Shiva in a different body, and she retained the new identity for the rest of her life. This highly unusual case was investigated by multiple researchers and has been interpreted variously as one of the reincarnation, possession, or both. Shiva Tripathi was born on 24th October 1962. She grew up in the city of Etawah. At the age 18, she entered into an arranged marriage with Chedilal and moved in with his family in the small town of Dibyapur. According to Indian custom, the couple had two sons nicknamed Rinku and Tinku. Shiva's husband's family, by marriage, considered her dowry insufficient and often complained about this verbally and in letters. Whatever the cause, the quarrel came to a head in late May 1985. On the evening of 18th May, Shiva's maternal uncle, by marriage, visited the family and was told by a tearful Shiva that her mother-in-law and one of her sister-in-law had beaten her. He tried to calm matters, to no avail. The next morning, the uncle heard that Shiva's corpse had been found on railway tracks at a nearby station. Her in-laws said she had thrown herself in front of a train. The uncle requested that cremation be delayed until Shiva's father could be brought. But while he was travelling to fetch Ram Siya Tripathi, the in-laws obtained permission from local authorities to cremate Shiva's body, expediting the body by adding fuel oil. By the time Tripathi arrived at Dibyapur, his daughter's corpse was ashes and bone. He reported the death to police, who began an inquiry. There were rumors in Dibyapur that people had seen Shiva's in-laws carrying her to the railway station under cover of darkness. Shiva's husband and father-in-law were arrested but then released for lack of evidence. Her mother-in-law and sister-in-law went into hiding for some months and were arrested when they returned in 1986. Eventually, they too were released due to lack of evidence. Several newspapers ran stories about the death and the murder accusation. Sumitra Singh was born around 1968 in Etawah district. Her mother died when she was 11. Earlier, she was often separated from one or both parents and lived for 8 years with an elder cousin in neighboring district. When Sumitra was 13, her family arranged a marriage with Jagdish Singh of the village of Sharifpura and moved in with his family. Just as her father had been, her husband was often absent, sometimes for months at a time, pursuing employment in Delhi. After 3 years of marriage, she gave birth to a baby boy in December 1984. A month or two later, Sumitra began having episodes of loss of consciousness or trance, in which her eyes would roll upward and she would clench her teeth. These events varied in duration, from a few minutes to a full day. Sometimes she would say afterwards that she had been possessed by the goddess Santoshi Mata, of whom she was a devotee. On two occasions, she was apparently possessed briefly by communicating personalities. One, a Sharifpura woman who had drowned herself in a well. The other, a man from another part of India. Her family sought the aid of local healers to no avail. On about 16 July 1985, Sumitra predicted that she would die 3 days later. On 19th July, after an unexplained fever, she lost consciousness and appeared to die. Eyewitnesses agreed that her respiration and pulse stopped and her face drained of blood for at least 5 minutes. But as her family members began mourning her, she came back to life. Her identity appeared to have completely changed. She now calls herself Shiva Tripathi. When Sumitra awakened, she appeared not to recognize her surroundings or the people around her. She spoke very little for a day, then began saying that her name was Shiva and she had been murdered by her in-laws in Dibyapur. Sumitra told that she had been brought before Lord Yama, the Hindu god of death. She saw people with their feet turned backward being punished according to their karma, some being whipped, some being thrown into boiling water. The goddess Santoshi Mata came to aid her, hiding her under the plank on which Yama sat and feeding her. After some days, Sumitra begged for mercy from Yama, who agreed to send her back for 7 or more years of life. She wanted nothing to do with Sumitra's husband and infant son, but wanted to be taken to see Shiva's 2 children. She stated many details about Shiva and her life that the reincarnation researchers learned from relatives who had been witness to the statements. While visiting Dibyapur, Shiva's father Ram Siya Tripathi heard a rumor that his deceased daughter had possessed a girl in Sharifpura. Tripathi now showed Sumitra some pictures in a photograph album. She correctly identified all 6 family members in a photograph that had been taken 8 years earlier. Shiva's parents, grandmother, brother, sister, and Shiva herself. She recognized all 5 of the Tripathi children shown in another picture, and Shiva's mother, brother, and maternal aunt in a third. Upon seeing a photo of Shiva's young son, Tinku, Sumitra began to cry and asked where Tinku and Rinku were. Upon seeing a photo of Shiva's sister-in-law, she said, "This is Rama Kanti who hit me with a brick." This statement convinced Tripathi entirely that Sumitra was his daughter returned. Of 17 people in 8 photographs, she identified 12 without hesitation and 3 with some hesitation and failing to recognize only 2. Sumitra remained Shiva to the end of her life, a period of 13 years. Researchers examined Sumitra's case in the context both of possession cases and reincarnation cases. They note that the duration of a possession can last from a short time to many years, so that for Sumitra to have experienced herself as Shiva for 13 years is not implausible. They observe that while typical reincarnation cases often features birthmarks or birth defects that echo wounds or injuries sustained by the previous person, this tends not to happen with possession cases, presumably because the body is already formed. Following her transformation, Sumitra showed no birthmark reminiscent of the fatal wound to the Shiva's head. This is still a case of curiosity for many, and here we too cannot conclude what it was, a possession or a reincarnation. You can let us know what you think it was in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. We will see you with another afterlife tale.